were just thinking. It's amazing.
So here's Hannah.
Wonderful. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay.
Thanks for doing the video interview with us.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you mind if I record this?
No, that's okay.
Great. Do you want to get started?
Sure, okay.
I'm going to shut the door. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, my first question is there like a certain event, or were there like events that were kind of like the pivotal moment where you decided to become an electronic composer?
Well, kind of, yeah. So, I was about in my early 20s, and I was making music in bands with boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the 90s, beginning of the 90s, and I was a little unhappy about the sound, how I had really high expectations at how the sound should be. And it was the time of drum and bass was starting to come out, and the first jungle tunes were happening here in Europe. So the manipulated beat became something very interesting to me. And you couldn't do this with bands and with the band. So I was really starting to get interested in electronic music, and I spoke to some people in the music store about that, and one person, an older guy, gave me an old Commodore 64, like this very old computer, and said, you know what, I have this like portable Commodore 64, and I have these like floppy disks and this software, and you know, it's not the latest, but you can have it, and you can try if you get anywhere. And he also sold me a Kurzweil keyboard, a synthesizer along with it, and that's how it started. Okay. And I was like, holy hell, I can make my own sound with that, my own beats, I can program my music, and I don't need to go into rehearsal rooms with boys and beer cans anymore. That was the motivation.
Okay.
And then I moved to London, and then I really studied by myself. And that was before the internet, and that was before YouTube tutorials, and that was before, you know, I had to go through like handbooks figuring out MIDI. That was really bad. And I had no connection to universities or people who did something like that. So I started from the bottom.
Oh, wow.
And so you're very much self-taught.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's really
like,
cool.
100%.
Are there like any...
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Were there any beliefs or practices that influence your work currently?
Like right now?
Yes.
Oh, millions, of course.
Yeah.
Beliefs or practices?
Yeah.
Well, beliefs, I don't know.
You want to be a little more specific,
sure.
Maybe?
So
that's
a
5-hour conversation.
Maybe.
No, but I can start somewhere. Wait a second. Well, I'm doing electronic music now exactly for 20 years, like releasing records. I'm doing it a little longer, but I'm doing real releases, like production, executive production, and writing and stuff. So I'm coming a long way, and electronic music has changed a lot or developed. Yeah, it's constantly like, along with technology developing, there's a lot of always, if there's a new kind of like synthesis or software or a new device, new computer, you know, something changes, and then changes the practice of people, and something gets invented, like let's say time stretching, or you know, something gets faster, and you always like work with what's next. And I have lately, for instance, worked a lot with apps on portable, because I also started to go outside to make music outside.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was actually reading that about your wilderness project, like the Sonic Wild Code project.
Yeah. That has been an incredible experience, and I'm doing this since like now 6 years, like going regularly out and work remotely. And now I'm doing it with teams and other people, and we're building own instruments. And actually right now I'm writing I'm writing a paper with another instrument builder about that practice.
Okay.
So that is something which is really fresh to me and also fresh in my mind. And there is not so much references. There is references, but not too many. But it's something really new, so it's really, really interesting. But also, I'm writing a new record, for instance, and I'm practicing the same kind of principles I would when I try to write an innovative electronic music record.
Okay.
It's kind of always the same. You try to find a unique, a unique sound, which gives something new to the conversation of electronic music in a way.
Would you say that and I know that you're also a singer and you do a lot of writing and poetry. Would you say that like your ways of like finding unique sounds kind of help like bring out like the words of what you're trying to say? Because like I know you try to emphasize a lot of like text in a lot of the work that you've done. So do you like try to explore new technologies to bring out the text in the stuff that you work on?
All the time.
Okay.
What I really like is to use technology to write poetry. Mm-hmm. It's something which I've done a lot, and I enjoy the inspiration coming with that. So, like, let's say granular synthesis or any sort of sound processing, how it affects words and then meaning, and the deconstruction of it goes into something I kind of like, because I work a lot with technology and I love technology as in a way as something has enabled me or has given me freedom and power, and the power to express myself, the power to afford technology I need to express myself, which, for instance, I think is a super important point in terms of women and pioneering in electronic music. The economy of owning gear and being able to actually access all that technology, because I think there has been incredible women in universities for like 60 years, right, to make incredible work. But since the laptop and since the accessible possibility, I think it's really exploding. Like, suddenly many women can afford that. I mean, men as well, but they kind of always could or could easier than us. So I think there's some sort of empowerment through this affordable technology for women as well right now, so we can actually like have these safe spaces also to do our own stuff. And I think at the moment it's a little bit that there's like, I think there's thousands and thousands of women producers in their bedrooms trying stuff and not yet quite coming out yet, making records and stuff, but they're doing it. And I think it's gonna be an explosion in the next 10 years, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I actually also study music technology, and I was wondering if there's like any gear that you yourself have like modified or made and like maybe even used in like your Sonic Wildcode project outside, because I know you guys like performed and also recorded like, the performances as part of the project.
Yeah, we have I'm more like a digital girl.
Okay.
So I'm building software.
Okay.
Like patches and my own like software instruments with Max or PD, Pure Data, and I'm really curious about also developing my own apps, because I like the portable effect of a little supercomputer going outside. I have battery powered tablets with me and stuff, but I have worked with other friends who built little Arduino synthesizers or little tiny computer based instruments or feedback systems and stuff like that, which we've been using there. And that was really interesting with the project I did last autumn, which it was in a context of a larger group of scientists, artists, and thinkers. We went up north to this like it's called Lapland, it's the northern part of Finland, where actually it's originally called Sami land because this is the native land of the Sami tribe, which is a stateless indigenous community who herds reindeers. And we've been meeting those people and going through their land and being like, we walked off. I had the sonic group, so I was curating that sonic part. There was also a media part, and then there was a drone team and stuff like that. And it was all about hybrid matter. So I find that right now the most interesting situation to really mix up, to really interact with also other types of thinkers and all sorts of people, right? Politicians even, or journalists and so on. I find it really interesting to intermingle and not just stay in your own group. So we were doing these day trips where I went with like 6 different kind of sound practitioners into the nowhere. Like we would walk for an hour or 2 until we wouldn't hear any civilization sounds anymore, like no cars, no. And then would record, I would find a space which we would like to play, like a stone field or a ballet or a stream or something like this. And then we would like play together, sometimes acoustic, resampling the sound, like electroacoustic elements. Then also we had computers with us. We would live code, try to imagine in terms of composition, try to think about the land as a score or something like that. And improvise, like we've been improvising and listening to each other, but also had like certain tasks. Like one day, for instance, we just got into it and didn't stop for 2 hours until we were really messed up, like tripping noses and everything was really messy. Like it's wilderness, so it's not pretty. So, and then next day we said, oh, we're just going to play 20 minutes and that's it. This is all we have, like this is the score, like a 20-minute score, and we start like that. So we were experimenting with ideas how to play in groups outside in wilderness, and then also hoping to be heard by the landscape or by animals. And it was really amazing. Every time we attracted reindeers, curiosity to come and listen. It was so awesome. So yeah, that stuff happened. Is that what you asked?
Yes, that was what I asked.
Yeah, kind of like, yeah. And we're building instruments, and I'm really now writing this text with this instrument builder from a university in Berlin. And we're really trying to really pen down parameters. What do we need? What does the instrument need to have if you want to go outside? In terms of like ideally being self-powered, or try to work with even derive the energy from the nature, for instance, and stuff like that. So we're investigating.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So
and it's also the funnest part ever. It's the funnest thing ever I've done.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I'm not really sure why we're doing this, but it feels like something meaningful, because playing music in clubs or concert situations, is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we do as humans, right? We're playing either for a seated audience or for a dancing audience or for a drinking audience or whatever. But it's so kind of interesting to not have any of that, to just go and play for the non-human agency, let's say, like for space and for yourself and for investigation, and surround yourself with something which is actually really nice,
Yeah.
like and stuff.
Are you documenting these outdoor wilderness playing experiences?
Yeah, it's harder when I'm alone because it's too much to do. But for instance, when we were there, we made 3 videos. You can see them on my Vimeo. Have you seen them?
I've seen one of them. But I've listened to them on your website through the Poem Producer website, and then you had a link for the project there. And I listened to some of your work and the little descriptions for like where you guys went, and just like your approach to the different recordings and stuff.
Yeah, it was cool because I'm not an academic, so I usually don't think like that. I think but I was there with academics, so it was really cool because they were kind of forcing us to write everything down and structure everything and stuff like that. So it was really good for me because usually I work intuitive and like kind of follow my guts and every experience is informed by the next and I develop like that. But it was really good actually to work with academics. So we are now writing this stuff down and try to a little bit structure it. So it's just very interesting. And you can listen to most of the things I've done. I mean, I started in 2010. I had a residency in UK where I was the first time saying, I want to go outside. I don't want to play anymore in clubs or concert halls. I want to go outside and play in the woods. But then I put like a long power cable, like 300 meter, because electronic musician, you need electricity. So I built a PA into the woods and it was, of course, it made no sense. It was ridiculous. And then the next thing I tried little radios. So I had a radio distributor, like a FM transmitter and like 20 radios and put them everywhere. Yeah, that was quite nice. So it was a very like more natural like dispersion of sound sources, but you always kind of, and now I'm taking very little speakers. I have different sorts of, do I have them here actually? No, I'm investigating, we're like trying to also build speakers which are making sense to take, and because you need something to hear like electronic music. I mean, we also play acoustic stuff like Stones but it's really nice to amplify it. So this is an interesting challenge.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I know that deep listening is like a big component for this project out there. I just wanted to know what your take on deep listening was and like how you feel it impacted you and your group when you guys are working outside.
Do you refer to Pauline Oliveira's thinking? Yeah. Actually, I hadn't at that. I just met her in November the first time. And so made her workshop and listened to her. Or I knew about it, of course, but I've never really spent so much time with it. But of course, I was practicing the same kind of thing by myself with these people too. Like we were like all nature people. Like one guy, for instance, very interesting. One Kasper Stracke from Sweden. He was actually a biologist. And he had made something very interesting, sound recordings in the jungle, like really long form sound recordings with where he would then use software to analyze these recordings. He wouldn't even listen. He would just analyze them with software to find out species behavior, stuff like that. So we took him, but he was all the time in nature. So he's a nature forest guy, and he heard everything. He was so skilled in listening, and some other people as well. Like we had a field recording woman, Dinah Bird, with us. She's from Paris. She's a 20 years field recording experienced. She had like lots of different microphones with her. So she was basically all the time recording us and also performing within the scenes we were setting up. So she wasn't just recording. She was also walking around and making compositions by engaging with certain sound sources, like whatever was happening. That was super interesting. And yeah, I think the listening anyway for me is like the core to everything, right? Like this is something also which I'm telling to the kids I'm working with and I'm teaching. The listening, just to learn to listen and listen to each other. I mean, that would be just such a good thing if we would all do this more often. Like, listen to the environment and to each other and school that kind of sense, this amazing sense we have. And I'm personally deeply convinced that listening has a function we are not even comprehending in the littlest, like we don't even know what that does to us, like how much we are informed by listening and what's possible through listening to, I don't mean an actual thinking, but also just like consciousness and acting and all sorts of interesting stuff.
Have you also Were you also involved with the group with Kathy Matthews and Eliane Radigue?
Yeah. Like the Lapetites.
The Lapetites, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say a little about that.
So, I was invited by Kathy, which I met several festivals. Do you know her?
I know of her, and I've heard her perform.
Yeah. So we met at some event in the end of the 90s, and we were really happy to find another girl to do what we're doing. So that kind of girl connection happened. And then she had this band already, but it was kind of falling apart because of intercontinental difficulties. And then she asked me if I would come into the group. And then we looked for somebody else, and I had just recently seen Ryoko perform at Sonar, and I thought it was really strong, so we invited her. We thought a Japanese artist would be great as well.
What is her name again?
Her name is now Ryoko Akama.
Yeah.
She's also, there's a really good blog I just made about the Lapetites, which also shows all our involvement with Eliane.
Oh, great.
So we had, I can give you this URL. So we were practicing as Lapetites, did a few residencies and a few shows, and then one curator from Geneva actually invited us to participate into one festival which is kind of dedicated to Eliane, and she kind of tricked Eliane and us into working together because Eliane wasn't really open for it. We were like, yeah, and she was like, but I think she kind of faked something, and then it happened. It was really cool. It was actually a cool prank because Eliane wasn't ready. Later, she was very happy about it. So this is how we met Eliane, and then it was awesome. We performed a few times her piece Elemental, and and have worked together now a few times. And I'm also working with her right now with Eliane. On a new piece. She was writing new acoustic pieces with acoustic performers.
I heard.
Yeah. So I'm doing a voice-only piece with her. It's very difficult, but it's progressing. And Kathy and we are all really big friends, so we're like, we don't play often, maybe only every second year or somehow we get invited, but it's a great friendship and has always been. And we made an opera together in 2009, like a multimedia opera about our fathers. It was called Fathers, and it was crazy, and it was a very big work, big stage situation, which it was really challenging but very interesting. So Lapetites is a really good project. I sent you the URL. I've just recently uploaded everything, and there's also a lot of our Eliane pictures and what we've made with Eliane. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic because we started the course with talking about Pauline Oliveras and Eliane Radigue and some of the other pioneers like Bibi Baron, and then each of the students is going to write about a younger artist like yourself and then relate it to one of these foundational figures.
Nice.
Anea Lockwood. So we're seeing the tradition.
Cool. So yeah, I was very happy that you know the Nerd Girl site. That was good because I was really researching.
That's wonderful. That's a really wonderful site.
Yeah, and I've now made already this visibility Tumblr. Do you know this?
Yes.
So I keep going doing that stuff because it is very often. I'm actually now developing this like guidelines for other women, which is like, it's just a tool to like remind us that we are not getting suppressed again all the time, over and over again, because it is really strange how it is happening. I'm just so puzzled sometimes how this is happening. I was just 2 days ago, I was scrolling through Twitter to all the magazines I know, big ones, small ones, and looking at the timeline of these magazines' tweets. And almost all of them, there were 2 exceptions, would only post men's work.
Wow.
And there's no reason for that. There's absolutely no reason for that. But you have to check that out. This is another one. I just stumbled now about it because I'm doing the female pressure Twitter now. So I was just scoring through these papers like Fate or Fact, all these quietus, all these what people who listen to music read or want to be informed with. It was incredible. I was really like, even like the most underground wannabe coolest, all of them. It's really outrageous. So I'm really developing this guideline saying, okay, all women resist the media reports of the one exceptional woman.
Right.
That's my first guideline, because that's why I did Nerd Girls, because I'm watching this now for 20 years and I'm like, why is there always one woman?
Exactly. Pauline has been the woman very often.
Yeah, I have been a woman quite often too, or like Kathy or somebody. And there's always one, and it's always this one woman at the festival, and the rest is guys. And in the beginning, I was like, when I was young, I was like, I'm the exceptional woman. But like after a while, you think, why is that? I know another 20 who could have gotten the job, or got another, like we could be 5 here. So that's how it started. And then I thought, okay, that's kind of a principle. The exceptional woman, is going to be there. Like, we have to resist that. Like, we cannot accept that anymore, stuff like that. And developing these guidelines and solidarity with the other woman. I was just recently on another panel with women and electronic music production. And there was this, like, women of course, they try to find their ways. We're trying to find role models. Who do we want to be like? And And there's always these fights, like, the big example, Nicki Minaj or something. Like, there was a rapper girl who was really against Nicki Minaj. I'm a huge Nicki Minaj fan. And so we were, like, having this conversation that we just have to accept the other woman. No matter what kind of choices they make other choices. I mean, Nicki Minaj makes other choices than I make, but it's her choices. And I have to, like, she's incredible. We were discussing this. And this is so interesting, I think. I mean, she's a pop artist, but like even this happens in our scene as well, like people have to accept different women with different choices. It's so important, and show solidarity to them, even they're different than you and they make stuff differently. It's just really stuff like that. So I'm becoming really militantly. No, I'm joking.
What are the best magazines in the scene that you're talking about, or the ones that most people read, that we could put some attention on and maybe agitate for the inclusion of more women?
Like experimental electronic music, you mean?
Yeah.
I guess the Wire magazine is.
Yeah. Right. And
they're doing quite well, but even their Twitter streams, it's like social media is so powerful. Like, who reads their magazine? But I guess like 20,000. I don't know how much followers they have, but they have a lot. So 20,000 subscribers read their Twitter stream. It's like, or I don't know how they're not so bad, but they could be better too.
Who?
The Wire magazine.
Oh, the Wire, yeah.
So, but I don't know who else. There used to be one really cool in the US. I don't know if it still exists. What was the name? Well, I'm following also the music magazines. I really like pop music too. So I'm watching them all. Tiny Mixtapes is maybe something nice. There's one new one. Actually, I need to maybe think about this and send you a list or something.
Yeah, that would be great, because that could be a little area of activism that some of the kids who are interested in the class might do. Yeah.
Cool. No, that would be really cool. I started to shame them now officially. I don't care anymore, like not like the Donald Trump way or Kanye West way, but like, I'm saying, hey, I went down your Twitter line really long and I didn't see one report on female art. How come? That makes no sense to me. Like, they don't make money with this. This has nothing to do with, like, this is just, it's pure, I don't even think they realize.
I think it's very unconscious. I mean, just like racism, it's so unconscious, and it gets behaved, the ignoring of the other.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to speak out also, like, let's say us older, participants in this. It's like, for instance, Pauline is doing this amazingly. I just saw a lecture of hers, which was incredible, cool, because she was speaking of the of women, and she also introduced a lot of different artists, and she was speaking of her work. For instance, do you know this piece she did about Marilyn Monroe? And do you know this Pauline piece? This is
Do you mean the one Valerie Solanas in
exactly.
desperation of her?
Exactly.
Yeah, in recognition of her
in
desperation.
recognition of the desperation of Marilyn Monroe
and Valerie Solanas. Yeah.
Incredible
It's
piece,
an incredible idea, yeah.
Yeah, and that's so true. It's so true, and I see this still, and it's yeah. I mean, cool. Yeah, no, I'm gonna write you a list. I'm
Great.
not like top of the head, like have them all now. I'm just gonna collect them for you, and then it would be great if you follow also Female Pressure on Twitter or wherever on Facebook and help us spread the word. We're really doing incredible activism right now, like since 2013. We're counting also a lot. We're counting labels, we're counting festivals, and we're counting clubs of gender rate. And we've done this fact studies, so we're really going with, that's how we started. We went in with facts. We weren't anymore, you're not booking us. We were like, these are the facts, and they're per country, per continent.
Wow.
And it has been, you can find it all on Female Pressure website. There's a fact button. And then, every year we've done something, and we're pushing really hard now because it's now also really happening. I mean, everybody picks it up, right? Like, even Beyonce has, like, given a huge kick to it, York. But so it's, I like the idea of, it's also what I like about the Black Lives Matters movement, how it's kind of classless, and like the solidarity goes really from like through whole society, in my opinion. I can, as far as I can judge it, and this is, I think, what we also have to do for us. We have to really, ignore all. We have to really just focus. This is our thing now. We cannot accept that anymore. That this is happening all the time, over and over again. This white male supremacy about like everything, this is something where I feel we have to just look over all our differences as women and just really focus. And I can see this is really happening in all sorts of places and societies and jobs and stuff. For instance, when I did the visibility blog, like put up these like hundreds of female music producers, like architect women came up to me saying, "Oh, can you do this for architects too?" And it's even harder for them, or like filmmakers or something.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere. So it's just our shot now. I think we have to, like, a collective, worldwide, global push. Is happening, and we did this Rojava campaign. Did you see that?
Yes.
That's the latest, because there's something really interesting happening, because they are in war. They are anti-economic. It's in northern Syria. So, and they're building, they're even stateless. They don't have a state. They have nothing. They have also no money, nothing. They are building defense, the women building armies, defense units, and they're building, they're on the front, they're fighting because they're under concrete threat of sex slavery, like murder, mass murdering, and so on. But what's interesting, besides that they're fighting for it with weapons and like for real, is that they're also built in the backyard of that. They're building new societies. And the idea is to build really from the scratch, from like zero, something what we can never have in the West. It will be never be possible to start like that again, because we have these like ready worlds, right? Like everything's set up. They have nothing. So they start to build everything 50-50. Like no gender is allowed more than 50 or 60%. And always co-presidency, like a woman and a man lead every council. So interest councils exist everywhere for different things, farmers, women, teachers, blah, blah, blah. And then they build over like another councils, and it's a really interesting society they're trying to build. And I don't even think they're going to succeed, because they're going to kill them all, but it's still interesting. And it's that's why we're doing this Rojava campaign, because nobody's talking about them, because they are They are invisible, kind of. They have no state. They have nobody behind them. The US is a little bit into them because they're fighting ISIS on the ground. But at the same time, I don't know, the Russians bombed them and the Turkish people bombed them, and it's crazy stuff. So that Rojava campaign is about the women's revolution in this context, which is extreme and not really comparable to us, but in a way it's superior to us, how we in the West exist as women. It's and these women, we made a panel now at the Club Transmediale Festival in Berlin about this, and we found women who've been there on the front fighting with weapons, and they came and they spoke about it, and they're saying that our feminism is bullshit. Yeah, that it's not working, and they're really radical. It's lovely. Like, I loved it because they were really, you know, they weren't conforming with any of the patriarchal system. Right. It was really, really interesting, and so I'm inspired by this, and we try to talk about it. So also, if you could talk to your students about this would be really good. We have a great website. Actually, it's still open call until end of this month, and then we're gonna make an exhibition or maybe a release with it. We made like lots of music in support and solidarity and awareness campaign, so people even hear the word Rojava, because when I started kicking this campaign off, there was in November or something, there weren't many people who knew even about that at all.
So anyone can contribute.
Yeah, anyone, like also men and everything. Like, we want to have everybody to talk about it, and we have started making alliances all over the world, like to talk for that cause. It is connected to the Kurdish question, the Kurds, which have no state. Right. No state, and they're also saying now they don't want to have a state because the state is the oppressor and the aggressor, and it's very interesting stuff, just in terms of like society, and it's generally really interesting. And we have tried to connect with them via music as well, and of course to just support them, these women who are fighting there for real, like they build this beautiful stuff.
Well, this has been fantastic, Antje. Thank you so much. I have to go to another meeting.
Sure.
But I appreciate
my daughter.
Thank you for giving us so generously of your time, and we'll be in touch. All the class will hear this interview.
Awesome.
Next week.
Cool. Say hi to everybody, and
Okay,
love.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions.
Tschüss.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Tschüss.